pattern. You take off and enter the traffic pattern to practice a series of takeoffs and landings at your local airport. After a cross-country flight, you set up for a downwind entry to the traffic pattern at an uncontrolled airport. The tower at your destination instructs you to enter the traffic pattern on a left base. You'll be operating in the traffic pattern during every flight, so in this lesson, you will learn how to become proficient at traffic pattern procedures as you explore the following topics: key knowledge and skills, flying a traffic pattern at an uncontrolled airport, and flying a traffic pattern at a controlled airport. The standard traffic pattern is rectangular and has 5 named legs: downwind, base, final, departure, and crosswind. The direction of the pattern refers to the orientation of the pattern turns. A left-hand traffic pattern requires left turns to all of the pattern legs. For example, after takeoff, to enter a left-hand pattern, you turn left to crosswind, left again to downwind, and so on. A left-hand pattern is normally used since it provides the best view of the runway from the left seat. A right-hand traffic pattern requires right turns to all of the pattern legs. A right-hand traffic pattern provides a way to avoid obstacles, terrain, airspace, noise-sensitive areas, or other runways to the left of the landing runway. In addition, a right-hand pattern prevents a conflict with left-hand pattern traffic at airports conducting simultaneous operations on parallel runways. Collision avoidance rests with you, the pilot in command. Airport operations require a constant effort to see and avoid other aircraft. To enhance collision avoidance within 10 miles of the airport, turn on your landing light. Monitor the Common Traffic Advisory Frequency, or CTAF. Look outside the airplane as much as possible. Accelerate to cruise climb speed for better forward visibility as soon as practical when climbing after takeoff. As you approach an airport, you need to plan your descent from cruise to pattern altitude. Suppose you're flying at a cruise altitude of 9,500 feet MSL and your destination airport elevation is 2,500 feet MSL. To plan your descent to the traffic pattern altitude of 3,500 feet MSL, find the difference between your current altitude and traffic pattern altitude, in this case, 6,000 feet. Next, calculate the time for descent at your chosen descent rate. If you descend at 500 feet per minute, it will take about 12 minutes to descend to pattern altitude. Finally, convert the descent time into a distance from the airport. Your ground speed is 120 knots, which is 2 nautical miles per minute, so you need to start descending at least 24 nautical miles from the airport. In addition to flying traffic pattern procedures correctly, you should follow safety precautions when operating at airports to avoid hazards that can lead to accidents. Collision hazards with aircraft operating on runways, or runway incursions, are caused by errors associated with communication and positional awareness. To avoid runway incursions, use techniques such as reading back clearances and asking for progressive taxi instructions. The wake turbulence from a large airplane can cause loss of control of smaller aircraft. Know when and where to expect wake turbulence and perform wake turbulence avoidance procedures, such as avoiding the area below and behind other aircraft. Wind shear is particularly dangerous when you're flying near the ground during takeoffs and landings. Be alert for conditions favorable to wind shear, such as a frontal system, a temperature inversion with upper-level winds in the area, or thunderstorms, and take steps to avoid encountering wind shear. According to the FAA, 39 out of every 40 airports are non-towered or uncontrolled. When you're proficient at entering, flying, and exiting the traffic pattern using standard traffic pattern procedures, you increase flight safety at uncontrolled airports by helping to create an orderly and efficient flow of traffic. The first step in flying the traffic pattern at an uncontrolled airport is to obtain airport information. Review your chart and set radio frequencies. Listen to an automated weather service station or contact the Common Traffic Advisory frequency. Or overfly the airport at least 500 feet above the traffic pattern altitude to determine airport conditions and landing runway if you cannot obtain current airport conditions by radio. After you have obtained airport information, the next step is to prepare for pattern entry. Visualize the pattern entry and perform the before landing briefing. State your intentions on the CTAF at least 10 miles from the airport, and begin the before landing checklist as appropriate. As you approach the airport with the runway in sight, enter the traffic pattern. Use a 45-degree angle abeam the midpoint of the runway on the downwind leg. Enter at pattern altitude, which is normally 1,000 feet AGL. After you turn onto downwind, fly the downwind leg. Fly parallel to the runway, maintaining pattern altitude. Begin descending for landing when you are abeam the intended touchdown point. The next step is to turn onto the base leg. Turn when the touchdown point is approximately 45 degrees behind the inside wingtip. Use approximately 30 degrees of bank. Then, turn final. Turn at least 1/4 mile from the runway threshold. Stay aligned with the runway centerline. After takeoff, climb out on the departure leg. Stay aligned with the extended runway centerline until you are beyond the end of the runway. If you're staying in the pattern, climb to within 300 feet of pattern altitude before turning crosswind. If you are not remaining in the traffic pattern to practice takeoffs and landings, depart the pattern. Continue climbing to pattern altitude. Then, fly straight out or turn 45 degrees to the pattern side of the runway. In either case, you should comply with the departure procedures established for that airport. Continue to monitor the CTAF until you are at least 10 miles away from the airport.
Okay, we're about 20 miles from the airport, so you want to go ahead and get airport information. So take a look at your chart and set your frequencies. The CTAF at Longmont is 122.97 and the AWOS is 120.0. Take a look at the field elevation, 5,055, so your traffic pattern altitude is going to be about 6,100 feet. And then let's go ahead and listen to AWOS and find out what the wind is and what runway they're using. Go ahead and tune that in and let's listen.
Longmont Vance Brand Airport, automated weather observation, 1754 Zulu weather. Wind 270 at 7, visibility 10, clear below 12,000, temperature 14 Celsius, 2.6, altimeter 2967, remarks, density altitude 6,500. Longmont Vance Brand Airport, automated weather observation.
Okay, so the winds are coming out of the west at 7 knots. So the runway you want to use is 29er. So now we want to prepare for the pattern entry. So visualize how you're going to enter the traffic pattern. And to help you remember the elements that you need to know as you get close to the airport, I'm going to perform a before landing briefing. The airport information that we got said the wind was 270 at 7, so we're going to use runway 29er. There's really no terrain or obstacles around the airport that we need to be concerned about. Airport elevation is about 5,100 feet, so the traffic pattern altitude is going to be 6,100. And based on our position, we're going to enter a midfield left downwind for runway 29er. Next, we want to state our intentions to Longmont traffic. Longmont traffic, Diamond Star 505 Juliet Foxtrot, 10 miles to the southwest, going to be entering a midfield left downwind for runway 29er, Longmont. And another thing you can do before you get busy in the traffic pattern is begin the before landing checklist. So to enter the traffic pattern, make sure you're at traffic pattern altitude, and we're at 6,100 feet right now. You can see the runway in sight up ahead. We're going to enter at 45-degree angle, abeam the midpoint of the runway, and then turn right on to the downwind, just like you're doing. Good. Fly the downwind leg parallel to the runway. If you're drifting toward the runway or away from it, crab into the wind so that you stay parallel. And as you're coming up, abeam the intended landing point. Look on the runway over there. Start your descent right now. Good. You want to turn the base leg when you're about a 45-degree angle from the end of the runway. So right about in here, you're going to want to start your turn. Use about 30 degrees of bank. That's good. And if you've got a fairly strong wind at traffic pattern altitude, you may need to crab a little bit into the wind as you turn this base so you don't drift too far away from the runway. Okay, go ahead and start your turn to final. Use about a 30-degree bank again. And as you roll out on this turn, keep that runway center line right in front of where you're sitting. Good. After takeoff, you're climbing out on the departure leg of the traffic pattern, and you want to stay aligned with that runway center line. Okay, since we're departing the pattern, go ahead and keep climbing up to pattern altitude, and then turn at a 45-degree angle to exit the pattern.
About 500 of the busier airports in the United States have control towers. When you fly at a controlled airport, the tower controllers provide instructions to organize arriving and departing traffic for safer, more efficient operations. The first step in flying a traffic pattern at a controlled airport is to obtain airport information. Review your chart and set radio frequencies. Listen to the ATIS broadcast. After you have obtained airport information, prepare for pattern entry. Visualize the pattern entry and perform the before landing briefing. Contact the tower at least 15 miles from the airport. Then begin the before landing checklist as appropriate. As you near the airport with the runway in sight, enter the traffic pattern. Check for traffic. Enter at the assigned point, and report your location to the tower. The final step in flying a traffic pattern at a controlled airport is to complete the pattern. Listen carefully for your call sign and comply with tower instructions. Land after the tower controller clears you to do so.
Okay, we're about 20 miles from the airport, so let's go ahead and get airport information. Look at your chart and look at the field elevation. At Centennial, it's about 5883. So traffic pattern altitude is going to be 6,800. and set your frequencies. Tower is 118.9 and ATIS is 120.3. And once you get the frequency set, let's go ahead and listen to ATIS, and we'll figure out what runway they're using.
Centennial Airport information, Sierra, 1653 Zulu. Wind 180 at 5. Temperature 16, dew point -6. Altimeter 3011. Visual approach in use, landing and departing runways 17 left and 17 right. Landing runway 28. Advise on initial contact. You have information, Sierra.
Now we're going to go ahead and prepare for pattern entry. So we want to contact the tower and let them know where we're at and what our intentions are. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. Centennial Tower, Diamond Star 505 Juliet Foxtrot, 15 miles to the northeast, inbound for landing with Sierra.
Diamond Star 505 Juliet Foxtrot, Centennial Tower. Enter a left base for 17 left. Report Parker and Arapahoe.
Enter a left base for 17 left. Report Parker and Arapahoe. Diamond Star 505 Juliet Foxtrot. Go ahead and visualize how you're going to enter the pattern. We're going to be entering that left base over the corner of Parker and Arapahoe. And I'm going to go ahead and perform a before landing briefing to review all the elements we need to know as we get close to the airport. The wind was 180 at 5, and the runway we're using is 17 left. There's really no terrain or obstacles we have to worry about at this airport. The airport elevation is 5885, so our traffic pattern altitude is going to be 6885. And we're going to be entering a left base for 17 left. Another thing you can do as we get closer to the airport is start your before landing checklist so you have less to do as you're entering the traffic pattern. We're going to enter the traffic pattern. We're coming up on the intersection of Parker Road and Arapahoe Road, which is where the tower told us to report entering a left base. I'm going to go ahead and make this radio call so you can have an example of how you want to talk to the tower. Centennial Tower, 505 Juliet Foxtrot, over Parker and Arapahoe, entering left base for 17 left.
505 Juliet Foxtrot, continue on left base for 17 left.
Continue on left base for 17 left, 505 Juliet Foxtrot.
Diamond Star 505 Juliet Foxtrot, cleared to land, 17 left.
Cleared to land, 17 left, 505 Juliet Foxtrot. Okay, the tower has cleared you to land. And you see the runway. You're going to go ahead and start turning final here. We're on a little bit wide of a base. And you'll notice that you also have a parallel runway to the right, so you don't want to overshoot as you turn final here. That's good. And once you get on final, get yourself lined up with that center line and put that center line right in front of where you're sitting. Good.
Of air traffic patterns improve both the safety and the efficiency of airport operations. They are particularly important at airports without operating control towers. This lesson covered key knowledge and skills, flying a traffic pattern at an uncontrolled airport, and flying a traffic pattern at a controlled airport.